Governor Scott Walker. Governor, good to have you here this morning.
Good morning. Tell your dad happy birthday, too. Maybe the middle name for that new baby can be Harley, since I know your dad rides a Harley just like I do.
And he's a good friend of yours, and I will tell him that. That's actually a really good thought. I want your opinion today on your friend, Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that he's getting too much of the blame here, or do you think that it's fair criticism?
Oh, I think the best thing for Paul Ryan, for President Trump, for everybody else on the Republican side of Washington is to look forward, not backwards. If they go big and they go bold on tax reform, people will be ready to move forward. I think eventually, obviously, they got to take another crack between now and November of 2018 on repealing Obamacare. But I think the best thing to get traction is not to look backwards, it's to look forward.
But what happened here? Because the best way to move forward is to learn from what happened.
Did you call him?
Yeah, I've talked to Paul quite a bit, even since Friday. But, you know, for me, the best thing he gets, and there's nobody better. If Donald Trump, President Trump, wants tax reform, which I think he's right to push for, I think it's be a great help for the economy. I think it's great for the people in my state if tax reform goes forward. The best person to do that in Congress is Paul Ryan. Nobody knows tax reform better than Paul Ryan. So I think they need to embrace, which they have verbally of late, and they need to push big, bold tax reform. When they do that, it'll help people in Wisconsin and people all across the country.
Governor, but I think a lot of Republicans watched him stand at the podium on Friday saying, oh, we got so close. We almost had the votes. Oh, shucks. And they said, listen, this was you had 7 years to do this. You've got a caucus of a lot of conservatives. You're a policy wonk yourself, as everyone acknowledges. And you kind of told the president, led him along to believe that this is something you could get done, and you didn't. So is there a true post-mortem being done here so that they can learn to move forward?
Well, I think on health care, even the president himself said a few weeks ago, it's a lot harder than he anticipated. That's because you've got so many different spectrums. You've got people who come from states where they took the expansion. You got people like my state where we did not take the expansion. We did not do the Obamacare expansion. We didn't set up a state exchange. And we were able to still cover everyone living in poverty for the first time in our state's history. But each state was unique and different. When it comes to tax reform, I think you look from the Freedom Caucus to the, what do they call it, the Tuesday Group, the full spectrum from moderates to conservatives, they embrace tax reform. I think this is the real chance to shine and go forward. And I don't think it's a matter of telling the president one thing or another. I think the president, the chief of staff, I think the vice president, others fully knew what they were getting into when it came to repealing and replacing Obamacare. They just were committed to keeping their promise. They made a push. They didn't get there as of this last week. But the next big step is tax reform. And I think they get a couple successes there and a few other issues. They can make another crack at it in the future.
So you mentioned he's got to bring all people to the table. The president has hinted at even working with some Democrats to get those votes, because it's going to be tough to get members of the Freedom Caucus and Democrats all on the same page. They are so far apart from each other. You know this as governor. I mean, to get anything done, you have to work across the aisle. You have to bring all types of voices to that table. Is that the advice you would give President Trump, is to reach across the aisle to maybe hear from other people to get their thoughts?
Well, I think it's fine working together. I think the bottom line, and I heard Governor Huckabee talk about this before earlier, you got to focus on the substance, not just on the process itself. Sure, it's great. You know, Phil Gramm years ago, when he was still a Democrat, helped lead President Reagan's tax reform. That was good. It was good for the American people. But the president didn't just work across party lines because of the process. He did so because he had a good product, and he was able to get people back then, Blue Dog Democrats, to go for it.
And Governor, you know, the criticism of this bill, as even Politico's headline was, Paul Ryan failed because his bill was a dumpster fire. And even, you know, Governor Huckabee on our show earlier saying it was the bill, it was the product that was bad, and they had 7 years to put this together.
Well, this is a good example. When you've got a broad governing coalition, it's difficult to bring them together. That's why I think, to me, the best thing they can do going forward, learn from the past, no doubt about that, but the best thing they can do is not spend too much time looking over their shoulders. Instead, look forward to tax reform. If they lower taxes on individuals, if they lower taxes on employers, which will in turn bring more jobs back from overseas to put more of our fellow Americans back to work, that will get things humming. That'll get them going in the right direction. Yeah, eventually they need to still have another vote and another action on repealing Obamacare, because they made that promise, and it's failing. You know, Martin O'Malley before, ignores the fact that people like Mark Dayton, a Democrat from Minnesota, last year said the Affordable Care Act is no longer affordable. So yes, they have to fix it. But part of the way
Yeah.
is they have to go ahead with tax reform as well.
As you saw in Wisconsin with the unprecedented, you saw sort of resistance before resistance with the unions and the recall and all the efforts to just smack. I mean, Republicans, if they don't close ranks with each other, you can't expect Democrats to bail them out. I mean, so your point is, in that coalition, work on the substance with fellow Republicans and conservatives to get it right.
Absolutely. I think there's a way to get this done, and I think the best next step, not to sound like I'd say a broken record, my kids would tell me nobody knows what records are anymore, but to repeat a point, tax reform is the best place to bring that House GOP conference together. It'll bring the Senate Republicans together. It'll work with the president. And most of all, it'll help the American people.
Yeah,
they get that
exactly.
done, they can get their momentum going, get the mojo back.
Most important, the American people. You're exactly right. I love hearing you're a Harley rider. Makes me so proud.
Thanks, Governor. We appreciate it.
2003 Road King.
I love it. All right, thanks for being with us this morning.